There is a moment that happens between two people, and most men completely miss it. She is sitting across from you, or standing beside you, or maybe she is halfway across the room, and something shifts in her. Not on the surface, not in anything she says out loud, but underneath, in the place where the mind goes when it stops being polite and starts being honest. She is thinking about you. Not in the casual way people think about someone they just met. Not in the way you think about a coworker or a neighbor or someone whose name you vaguely remember. She is thinking about you in the way that makes her breath change slightly. In the way that pulls her attention back to you even when she is pretending it isn't. In the way that plays out in private moments she would never confess to. And here is what nobody is telling you. When a woman is secretly fantasizing about a man, her body and her behavior betray her in very specific, very consistent, very readable ways. Not because she is careless, but because the human nervous system was never designed to perfectly conceal desire. It leaks. It always leaks. And if you know what to look for, it becomes one of the most obvious things in the world. I spent weeks going through behavioral research from institutions including the Kinsey Institute, the University of Texas at Austin, and the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. I cross-referenced that research with real clinical observations, real conversations, and honestly, my own experiences as a woman who has done every single one of these things without fully realizing it until much later. What I found was not random. It was consistent, predictable, almost unfairly clear once you understand the pattern. And here is the part I need you to really hold onto before we go further. 6 of the 7 signs on this list are things she does completely unconsciously. She is not performing them. She is not strategizing them. They are happening to her because of you, because of what her mind is doing with you in the private space behind her eyes. Which means that when you see them, you are not seeing a performance. You are seeing the truth. You are seeing what she actually feels stripped of every social filter she has trained herself to use. The last sign, number 7, is the one that will genuinely reframe your entire history with women, because it is the one that looks the least like attraction. Most men read it as discomfort, as disinterest, as her wanting to leave the conversation. And they pull back. They give her space. They talk themselves out of what they were feeling. But what is actually happening inside her in that moment is the opposite of indifference. It is the one sign that only appears when the fantasy has already gone somewhere deep. So stay with me until the end, because that one alone is worth everything. Let us start at the beginning. The first thing a woman does when she is secretly fantasizing about you is she finds reasons to exist in your sensory space. Not your physical proximity necessarily, though that often follows. Your sensory space. She wants to be somewhere you can see her. Somewhere you can hear her. Somewhere the possibility of your attention landing on her is real and present and alive. This is not the same as following you around a room. It is subtler than that and more consistent. She positions herself at an angle where she is visible to you during a group conversation, even though she is technically talking to someone else. She speaks slightly louder when you are within earshot, not so loud that it is obvious, but just enough that her voice carries to where you are. She laughs a little more freely, a little more genuinely, because some part of her brain is tracking whether you can hear it. Behavioral psychologist Dr. Monica Moore conducted a landmark study observing hundreds of women in social environments and documented over 50 distinct nonverbal signaling behaviors. Among the most consistent was what she called field positioning, the unconscious tendency to place oneself within the perceptual range of a person the subject found desirable. The women in her study did this repeatedly without being aware they were doing it. They gravitated toward the edges of rooms, the angles, the positions that put them inside the frame of the person they were focused on without making direct contact. Here is what makes this sign so powerful and so easy to miss. It does not look like pursuit. It does not look like interest. It looks like coincidence. It looks like she just happened to end up on that side of the room, just happened to be standing where you could see her, just happened to be facing your direction. But coincidences do not repeat themselves with that kind of consistency. Patterns do. And what you are watching is a pattern her nervous system is writing without her conscious permission. Pay attention to where she is in a room relative to where you are. Pay attention to whether that distance stays roughly the same even as the environment shifts. Pay attention to whether she is consistently, gently, almost invisibly inside the edges of your awareness. Because if she is, you are not just someone she has noticed. You are someone she is thinking about, and the thinking has already begun to take on a shape she is not ready to say out loud. The second sign is one that researchers call behavioral mirroring. and it is one of the most reliable indicators of deep psychological engagement that human beings produce. When a woman is secretly fantasizing about you, she begins to unconsciously synchronize with you. She matches your pace when you walk. She reaches for her drink shortly after you reach for yours. She shifts her posture in the same direction you shift yours. She crosses her legs when you cross yours. She leans forward when you lean forward. This is not imitation. Imitation is conscious. This is something that happens below the level of decision making, in the part of the brain that is trying to close the distance between two people without using words. Neuroscientists at the University of California found that behavioral mirroring is driven by the brain's mirror neuron system, a network of neural pathways that activates both when we perform an action and when we observe someone we are emotionally engaged with performing that same action. The brain is literally rehearsing closeness. It is practicing being the same as you, and it does this most intensely when the emotional investment is highest. Here is the part that matters for you. Mirroring that is driven by fantasy is different from mirroring that comes from polite social engagement because of one specific quality. It is delayed. Polite mirroring, the kind people do consciously to seem agreeable, tends to be immediate and slightly exaggerated. Fantasy-driven mirroring has a lag of a few seconds. It is softer, it is less precise. It looks like she just naturally settled into the same position you are in, like it was her own idea, like it happened by itself, because in a very real sense, it did. She did not decide to mirror you. Her mind pulled her there because it is already somewhere close to you, already inside the version of events that has not happened yet, but that she has been privately rehearsing. Watch for the small things. The way her hand moves a few seconds after yours. The way her body turns slightly after yours turns. The way she quiets when you quiet and becomes more animated when your energy rises. These are not mannerisms. These are maps, and they are pointing somewhere very specific. The third sign is one that most men interpret completely backwards, and it has cost more potential connections than almost anything else on this list. When a woman is secretly fantasizing about you, she becomes hyper-aware of other women near you. Not in an obvious way, not in the way jealousy looks in movies with dramatic reactions and pointed comments. In a quiet, controlled, almost invisible way that she would deny completely if you asked her about it. She notices when another woman laughs at something you said. She tracks without appearing to track. Who is standing close to you and for how long? If a woman touches your arm during a conversation, something in her posture changes. It is not rage, it is not even sadness. It is a tightening, a stillness, a very brief and very controlled recalibration, like a compass needle that got nudged and is finding north again. Evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss, whose research on human mating behavior spans over 3 decades, found that women who reported strong romantic interest in a specific man showed significantly elevated attention to potential rivals in that man's social environment. This response was not conscious in most cases. The women could not always articulate why they were aware of the other women. They just were. The brain had identified someone it was invested in and had quietly activated a monitoring system to protect that investment. Here is why most men misread this sign. When a woman becomes aware of another woman near you, she does not always look at you. Sometimes she looks away. Sometimes she becomes more engaged in a completely separate conversation. Sometimes she gets quieter, and quieter looks like disinterest. It looks like she has mentally left the room. But she has not left the room. She is more present in that room than she has been at any other point in the evening. She is just managing something internally that she does not want you to see yet. The tell is what happens after. After the other woman moves away, after the moment passes, there is almost always a recalibration back toward you. A subtle return. Maybe she finds a reason to re-enter your conversation. Maybe she laughs a little more, positions herself a little closer, becomes a little more present than she was before the interruption. Because the fantasy does not pause during these moments. It intensifies, and the intensity needs somewhere to go. The fourth sign lives in her eyes, specifically in the pattern of where she looks when she thinks you are not watching her. This one requires patience to observe, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it. A woman who is secretly fantasizing about you will look at you in a very specific sequence that she does not use with people she is simply being polite to or casually enjoying. She looks at your face first, almost always your mouth and your eyes in alternating quick passes, then her gaze drops. And this is the part that matters. It does not drop to your chest the way attraction is often cartoonishly depicted. It drops briefly, unconsciously, and then comes back up. often before she has even registered that it happened. Research published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior found that women who were asked to rate their level of romantic interest in a male subject while viewing images of his face showed distinct and measurable patterns in eye movement that correlated directly with the intensity of that interest. The gaze dipped and returned. The eyes spent more time in the lower half of the face. The return to eye contact after these micro movements was faster in high-interest subjects than in low-interest ones. But the eye behavior that is most revealing is not what happens when she is looking at you directly. It is what happens when she looks at you from across a room and you have not noticed her yet. Because in those unguarded moments, the face relaxes in a way it never does when it knows it is being observed. The expression that appears then is not a social expression. It is a private one. It is the face that exists before the performance begins. And that face, when it is pointed at you, when it is soft and slightly open and quietly focused on you from 15 feet away while you are talking to someone else and she thinks she is invisible, that face is telling you everything about where her mind goes when she is alone. The practical way to catch this is simple. Stop watching her when she is watching you. Start noticing what happens in your peripheral vision when you are deliberately engaged elsewhere. Because the unguarded look is the honest one. And it almost always appears when she believes she has a moment of safety to feel what she actually feels without consequence. The fifth sign is about language, specifically about the way her language changes when she is around you versus everyone else in the room. A woman who is secretly fantasizing about you will unconsciously begin to use more personal pronouns when speaking to you or near you. More you and I, more we in hypothetical contexts, more yours and mine in even the most casual references. This is not something she is scripting. It is the grammar of a mind that has already begun to construct a shared narrative, even if that narrative only exists so far in private. Psycholinguistic research from James Pennebaker at the University of Texas, one of the most respected researchers in the study of language and emotion, found consistent correlations between pronoun usage and emotional investment. People who are deeply engaged with another person begin to linguistically align with them without awareness. The language starts building a bridge before the person consciously decides to cross it. But beyond pronouns, listen for something else. Listen for how she uses the future tense around you. Not grand declarations, nothing that obvious. Small futures, casual futures. The kind that slip out between sentences when the internal editor is not fast enough to catch them. Things like, if you ever tried that you would probably love it, or we should go there sometime, said lightly, almost thrown away, almost immediately walk back with a laugh or a subject change. Those small futures are significant. They are exits from the present moment into the version of things she has been quietly constructing. And they surface most frequently when she is comfortable enough to stop monitoring herself completely, which only happens around someone she is genuinely, deeply focused on. The other linguistic signal to watch for is specificity. A woman who is fantasizing about you remembers things. She remembers the specific name of the restaurant you mentioned 2 conversations ago. She remembers the exact word you used to describe something you disliked. She references details that a person who was merely being polite would have forgotten entirely, because polite attention is general and fantasy-driven attention is precise. Her mind has been filing information about you in a place it reserves for things that matter. The sixth sign is physical, but not in the way most people discuss physical attraction signals. This is not about hair touching or lip biting, though those things are real. This is about something quieter and more consistent and in many ways more revealing. When a woman is secretly fantasizing about you, her body orients toward you even when she is not consciously directing it to. Her feet point at you during group conversations. Her shoulders open toward you even when her head is turned away. Her body leans in your direction the way a plant leans toward light, not dramatically, not even noticeably in any single moment, but consistently, persistently, across the entire duration of the time you spend together. Anthropologist and body language researcher Edward Hall developed the concept of proxemics, the study of how people use physical space to communicate social and emotional information. His research established that the body's unconscious orientation is one of the most reliable indicators of genuine emotional interest because it operates below the level of deliberate social management. People control their faces. People control their words. People do not consistently control the direction their body points when they are not thinking about it. Here is the specific thing to watch for. During a group conversation where she is engaged with multiple people, notice which direction her torso faces at rest. Not her head, her torso. The head moves where social obligation directs it. The torso stays pointed at the person the nervous system has prioritized. And if that person is consistently you across multiple different moments throughout the interaction, you are not just someone she finds interesting. You are someone who has taken up residence in the part of her mind that does not announce itself out loud. The seventh sign is the one I told you about at the beginning, the one that gets misread more than any other signal on this list, the one that has ended more potential connections than almost any other moment of miscommunication between men and women. And I want you to read this part slowly, because if you have ever felt something real with a woman and then watched it quietly disappear without understanding why, this is almost certainly what happened. When a woman is secretly fantasizing about you, and the fantasy has gone deep enough, gone specific enough, gone into the kind of territory that she is not ready to be vulnerable about yet, she becomes suddenly and inexplicably awkward around you. Not around other people, specifically around you. She trips over her words in a way she never does in other conversations. She laughs at the wrong moment, slightly too fast or slightly too loud, and then catches herself and goes quiet. She starts a sentence and loses the thread of it halfway through and has to recover with something that does not quite match what she started saying. She becomes clumsy in her own skin in a way that is almost impossible to fake because nobody performs self-consciousness this precisely. This is what most men read as discomfort. This is what most men interpret as a signal to back off, to give her room to reassess whether their read of the situation was correct. And in doing so, they walk away from the clearest possible evidence that she is not just aware of them, but deeply, privately consumed by them. Here is the neuroscience behind what is actually happening. When the human brain is in a state of heightened emotional arousal, specifically the kind associated with romantic fantasy and anticipatory desire, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for smooth social execution, for saying the right thing at the right time, for managing the performance of composure, becomes partially compromised. Not because something is wrong, because something is very right. The emotional centers of the brain are demanding so many resources that the part of the brain responsible for keeping everything controlled and polished simply has less to work with. Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist at Rutgers University whose research on romantic love and brain chemistry is among the most cited in the field, found that people in the early stages of intense romantic focus showed measurable decreases in prefrontal activity during interactions with the person they were focused on. The brain was not malfunctioning. It was redirecting. It was pouring its energy into the emotional and reward systems and leaving the social management systems with a reduced budget. And the result of that, the visible human result of that, is exactly what you are seeing when she stumbles over her words in front of you and nobody else. Think about what this means. The awkwardness is not a sign that she is uncomfortable with you. The awkwardness is a symptom of how much of her mental and emotional energy you are consuming. She is not clumsy around you because she wants to leave. She is clumsy around you because some part of her brain is so busy with you, so occupied with the version of you that exists in the private space of her imagination, that the front-facing social part of her cannot run at full capacity, while all of that is happening simultaneously. There is a specific quality to this awkwardness that distinguishes it from ordinary nervousness, and it is worth knowing precisely. Ordinary nervousness, the kind that comes from social anxiety or being in an unfamiliar situation, tends to be consistent across the interaction. It appears early and either fades or stays. Fantasy-driven awkwardness is different. It comes in waves. She will be completely fluid and easy and natural with you for a stretch of the conversation, and then something will happen. A moment of eye contact that holds a beat too long, a sentence you say that lands somewhere unexpected, a brush of physical proximity that her body registers before her mind can manage it, and suddenly she is slightly off, slightly less polished than she was a moment ago. And then she recovers, and then it happens again. Those waves are not random. They are responses to specific moments where the gap between what she is thinking and what she is allowing herself to show becomes temporarily too narrow to manage. Each wave tells you something exact. It tells you that in that specific moment, the fantasy broke through the surface just far enough to disrupt the performance. And every time that happens, it is because you did or said or were something that fed directly into what she has already been imagining about you. Now here is what you do with all of this. Because knowing these 7 signs without knowing how to respond to them correctly is like being handed a map with no sense of direction. The map is useless without understanding how to move. The first thing you do is nothing dramatic. You do not suddenly shift your behavior in a way that signals you have figured her out, because the moment she feels seen before she is ready to be seen, the walls go up and they go up fast. A woman who is secretly fantasizing does not want the secret exposed before she has decided to expose it herself. What she wants, what she is responding to when she keeps gravitating back into your space and mirroring your movements and losing her words around you, is a man who is present without being overwhelming. A man who makes the environment feel safe enough for the fantasy to eventually become something she is willing to say out loud. What that looks like in practice is simpler than most men expect. It looks like sustained, unhurried attention. Not staring, not performing interest, but genuine presence. The kind of presence where when she is speaking you are actually listening and she can feel the difference between being heard and being waited out. It looks like small moments of warmth that do not demand anything in return. A real laugh at something she says. A follow-up question that proves you absorbed what she told you 3 minutes ago. A moment of eye contact that does not immediately look away the second it becomes meaningful. Because here is the truth about a woman who is in the middle of a private fantasy about someone. She is not looking for grand gestures. She is not waiting for a performance. She has already seen enough of you to build something in her mind. And what she is doing now, with all of these signals that she does not even know she is sending, is testing whether the real version of you is consistent with the version she has been imagining. She is checking whether you are steady, whether you are safe, whether the man who exists in the space between you and real life is worth letting out of the private space she has been keeping him in. And the men who pass that test are never the ones who try the hardest. They are never the loudest, or the most impressive, or the most strategic. They are the ones who simply stayed present long enough, and steady enough, and genuinely attentive enough that she stopped needing to keep the fantasy private. The ones who made real life feel like it was worth the vulnerability of wanting something in it. That is the whole truth about what these 7 signs mean. Not just that she is attracted to you, not just that she finds you interesting, but that somewhere in the quiet interior of her mind she has already imagined something with you. She has already given you a version of herself that nobody else in that room is seeing. And if you are paying the right kind of attention, if you know how to read what she is telling you without words, you have something most men never get. You have the truth before she has decided to say it. The question now is not whether she is thinking about you. You already know the answer to that. The question is what you are going to do with the map she has been drawing for you this entire time without realizing it. Because she has been pointing you exactly where she wants you to go. She just needed to know you were paying close enough attention to see it.